Hello SPHL fans, and welcome to the video. Sorry about the echo. I'm not in my normal recording spot. But I was recently, well, not really tagged, but asked a question directed towards me by a dog fan by the name of Randy Stover. And the only reason I'm mentioning his name is because he's the one that asked the question. But as I'm answering this question I'm about to read off, it's not just directed at him. It's directed towards every SPHL fan that's not a fan of the Rivermen organization. So just keep that in mind. This is not an attack on Randy Stover's character or him as a person. It's not an attack at all. It's just me answering the question he posed. And the question he asked me, considering all the criticism Wade receives and how little we want to hear his opinions and reviews, although he's asking my opinion, I would like to know his thoughts on how playing lower seeded teams affects Rivermen's preparedness in the playoffs. Once the first round is over, that comfort zone gets tougher. Meanwhile, the rest of the teams play a more broad schedule to prepare for playoff hockey. That was his question to me. And I've kind of answered this question before, but you know what? I'll go ahead and answer it again, and I'll do this video style. But in my honest opinion of that question, it has very little to no effect whatsoever. And I will tell you exactly why that is. If you look at the Rivermen's overall record in this league since joining the SPHL in 2013, and again, we're talking overall record since then. When you look at it, they have a winning record against every single current team playing in the SPHL. And really, it's not even close. It's a pretty dominant record over the other teams in the SPHL. We're not just talking about the Thunderbolts and Quad City Storm here. No, it's over every team. The only two teams that are really close in the win-loss record department to the Rivermen are the Pensacola Ice Flyers. As recently as I believe 2022-2023 season, they were actually two games ahead of the Rivermen in the win department. But the last couple of seasons, Rivermen have been pretty dominant against Pensy, including this season where they've won every game that they've played against Pensy. And so that is no longer the case. The Rivermen have a winning record now over Pensacola Ice Flyers. The second closest team is the Bulls, and that's because we've played the Bulls the least amount of times out of the current teams. But it's still a winning record over them as well. That's just one of the reasons. Also, Rivermen have made multiple championship appearances, which gives them championship experience. And here, as of recently, in the past 3 seasons, they've won 2 President's Cups. They beat the Dogs on the road in Roanoke to capture their first one. And then as recently as last season, making them the defending champions, they beat the Huntsville Havoc. I think I don't have to tell people how good the Dogs and Huntsville Havoc has been, especially since Rivermen have played them in the championship. Outside of the Rivermen, those are probably the 2 top teams, outside of the Bulls as well. And in that championship game against Havoc, Rivermen were the first team in SPHL history to lose a Game 1 in the finals and go on to raise the cup in that same final. Again, over probably one of the toughest opponents in the SPHL, being the Huntsville Havoc. To not credit this organization and give them their proper due is beyond ignorant at this point. Flat out, plain and simple, it's beyond ignorant. To have the achievements the Rivermen have, also never finishing below third place in their SPHL history, and having the most winningest coach in SPHL history. Let's throw that in there too. I think that more than qualifies as being successful in the league as a whole. To not acknowledge this is just straight up being a hater. You're creating a false narrative of the Rivermen's success, trying to discredit them. And it's just not accurate at all. The Rivermen are in no control over their schedule. People know this. They have no control. And the way the league is set up, this is not the NHL. You are not operating on an NHL budget. This is the SPHL, where they still take buses to their opponent's arena. It can be expensive, really expensive. And again, we're not dealing with an NHL budget. So to help with expenses and to help the budget, teams play other teams that are geographically the closest to them the most to help their budget out, which is logical with a league like this. Again, they're not the ECHL, they're not the AHL, they're not the NHL. They are the SPHL with a 10-team league, and a lot of them, being in the southern states. So, again, that is why you see them play the Bolts and the Quad City Storm more times than they do the other teams. That doesn't mean they don't play the other teams, and that doesn't mean they don't have success against the other teams. Again, you don't have this type of success unless you got an outstanding coach and consistently have good players coming in your organization year after year after year. They've been one of the most consistent teams in this league, and their record proves that. It more than proves that. So, like I said, how does this affect the Rivermen playing lower seeded teams in the playoffs? Quite simply, it really doesn't affect them, because they're very well coached and they have a tremendous amount of talent that comes through their organization, and a lot of them choose to stay in the organization while playing. It's really that simple. So we really need to stop creating this false narrative that the Rivermen don't have a successful organization and they get special treatment from the league or have a say in their schedule making. They absolutely do not. That is all incorrect, all false, and couldn't be more untrue. They work hard. They're coached by a damn good coach, the best in the league. That's what his record states. That's not just my opinion. And they have a lot of talent that goes through that organization. And again, coming up here, Dogs, Havoc, and Rivermen are the top three teams. Rivermen being in first, Havoc in second, Dogs in third. And from now until the end of the season, their strength and schedule is pretty damn similar. And actually, believe it or not, Rivermen's might be the most diverse of the bunch heading down the stretch. And let me prove that point as well. Dogs finishing up the season, I'm not going through away or home. I'm just telling you who they play to finish the season. They got the Marksmen, Mayhem, and Ice Bears to finish out the season before the playoffs. Not exactly juggernauts. Outstanding record against the Ice Bears as well. The Havoc schedule, They got the Bulls, Rivermen, Bolts, and Macon. A little more diverse than the Dogs. You can argue a little tougher because they play the Bulls and Rivermen. Now we go to the Rivermen schedule that I believe is the most diverse of them all. And the majority of their games are also on the road as well, which I think might add to the difficulty. But they're on the road against the Ice Bears, on the road against the Havoc. They play Pincy at home, and then they got the Storm to finish the season. And so they're actually playing 5 different teams to finish their schedule out. Havoc playing 4 different teams. Dogs playing 3 different teams. I don't know if you're good at math or counting, but that means Rivermen has a more diverse schedule. And considering they have a majority of the games remaining on the road, you can argue they have a tougher schedule as well. I will post the schedules. By the time you see this video, they'll probably already be posted to further prove this point so you can see for yourselves. So again, if you want to hate on the Rivermen, you're not a fan of them, cool. But to sit there and say they're not a successful organization, they're overrated, they're not that good, it's just incorrect. You're lying to yourself to feel better about your team's lack of success against the Rivermen. Flat out, plain and simple. I would respect you a lot more if you told me, hey, look, Rivermen are a good team and they're always a threat in this league. But I don't like them and I want to see them lose. I will respect that a hell of a lot more than you making up bullshit to try and discredit them. I talk a lot of crap. A lot of crap. And I will always give credit when it's due. I've always given credit to Havoc for how good of an organization they have. I've given credit to the Dogs for how well they've played in the last 3 seasons. I've even given credit to the Storm for how good they've played, throughout the season. Have one of the best players in the league in Leif Matson. I can give credit to them, but I can also talk a lot of shit. And that's the difference. You guys give no credit to the Rivermen, which makes you look like fools. So stop looking like a fool. It's okay to give the Rivermen credit. You can still hate on them and give them credit at the same time. It is a possibility. And just because it's me saying it, doesn't make it any less true. And a lot of the times I get a lot of crap for what I say, and most of the times I'm attacked personally. I've had people look up my personal info from the jobs I've worked to my family to try and make fun of me just because they can't refute what I say about hockey. They got to stoop to the level of insulting me and my family and even what I do for a living. Which just says more about their character than mine. Look, I'm a pretty bold, arrogant person at times, no doubt about it, and I talk a lot of shit. But I also know my shit when it comes to hockey and when it comes to the Rivermen. So I'm always up for a good debate, and I don't even mind you guys not liking the Rivermen. That's okay to not like a team. But don't sit there and try and convince me or others that the Rivermen are not a good organization and team, because you are being a fool and flat out lying to yourself. Again, when it comes to the playoffs, anything can happen. Hell, the Thunderbolts was an 8th-seeded team last year and knocked off the number 1 ranked Bulls. Anything can happen in the playoffs. Anything. That's what makes the playoffs great, especially when it's only a 3-game series. So this playoffs is going to be interesting. It's not a given to anybody to win. Obviously, the top 3 teams are and should be favorited to win, being the Rivermen, Havoc, and Dogs. But Bull's got a shot. Marksman's got a shot. You know, it's going to take more for the other teams to do that, but that doesn't mean they can't. So with that, I'll go ahead and wrap up the video. Hope that answered your question, and I'll see you at the next puck drop, and I always keep it Rivermen style.